Hey everyone, it's Stu here at Create, Educate, and Inspire. And in this video, we're using the MPC auto sampler to take a bunch of sounds out of this analog monophonic synth and put them into the MPC and make your own key group polyphonic instruments. Once we sample, what we're gonna do is add some effects and then map those effects to the cue links so we then have live sound manipulation of all of those new instruments that we created inside of the MPC. Now I've actually gone ahead and made about 9 different patches that we're going to listen to at the start of this video, and that's an exclusive download to all my Patreon followers. A little thank you to the community for supporting this channel. If you want to join the community, please click on the Patreon link below where you can sign up and then grab this pack. So let's dive right into the video, take a listen to the pack, and then go through exactly how we did it. Before we jump into how we're using the auto sampler to take this monophonic analog synth and create polyphonic instruments inside of the MPC, let's jump into the browser and have a listen to the Mini Monsters Patreon pack that's available to download on my Patreon page. These are all instruments that we made using the method inside of this video that we're going to cover right after taking a listen to these patches. So as you can hear, there's a wide variety of sounds that we made using this method. So let's first go over the setup of how the MPC is connected to the sampler, how the auto sampler works inside of the MPC, and then what effects I'm putting on and how I'm mapping them to the cue links for real-time sound manipulation while we're actually performing with these patches that we're making. So first, the setup. We have MIDI going into MIDI. With MIDI, it's important to always go the MIDI in to MIDI out and MIDI out to MIDI in. This creates a perfect loop connection. So when I play notes over here, they trigger on the synth, or if I play notes on the synth, they trigger the MPC. Then for audio, it's audio out going into audio in. Try and pay attention to your gain staging. So I always run hot coming out of the synth and then keep the preamp pretty low inside of the MPC to not add any extra noise that I might not need. So once everything is connected, we're going to go in to the MPC, and on track 1, we're going to switch that into a MIDI track, and we have to say, I want to send output from MIDI 1 over into the external synth, clicking on MIDI port right here, and MIDI port 1. Now, there's one critical step we have to do in order to hear the audio coming out of the external synth. So if we hold down menu and just either tap sampler right here or tap that pad to go into the sampler menu, we have to turn on monitoring right here. So once monitoring is turned on, I should be able to hit a pad, which is going to trigger the MIDI, send the audio back, and we should be able to hear it. So I really like this sound, but I want to make this into a polyphonic pad that I can add reverb, delay, and a little bit of EQ manipulation in real time. So let's activate the auto sampler. Right up here, we go into the auto sampler menu. On the auto sampler, from top going down, we have first what track are we on and the MIDI program. Since we didn't change the MIDI program name, it's just MIDI program 01. And where are we recording from? Since we have stereo output coming to the stereo input, we just want to make sure that our input 1 and 2 is selected. Then below that, we have our note range. I'll typically go and change it from the default C2 down to C1 all the way up to C4. I find that that covers the range that I'm working within. The note stride. The note stride essentially says how many steps in between the actual notes are going to be sampled, and then those samples are going to be stretched over the key map. So it defaults to 6. I find that with 6, you usually get something that sounds just as it would if you sampled all the individual notes. You could go down to 1, meaning that you're going to take a sample on every single note. Just be aware that the lower the note stride, the more the samples, and the more memory you're going to take up in your program. Going down, you have your velocity layers. If you have something, let's say a piano or a set of keys, and they're velocity sensitive, so when you're playing the external synth, if the sound changes with the different velocity input, you may want to sample those different multi-layer velocities. You can do up to 4 different velocity layers. For something like this, I'm going to leave it just with 1 velocity layer because I'm going to be using filters and EQs on the MPC to do my sound manipulation, and this is essentially just an on-off patch. Now down to sampling. So this is how long is the note and how long is it going to sample after the note has been released. So if we listen to this program right here, it has a pretty short release. If it had something like a very long release, we could extend the tail, meaning that it's going to extend the time that it records after that note has been released. Now if we want to turn this into a nice evolving pad, let's take the note length and just go up to, let's say, about 5,000 to 6,000 milliseconds. That'll give us a little bit of hold time to hold out those notes and actually extend on a nice pad sound. Then right under that, we have, what are we going to call this? So let's just call this pad warm. That's going to not only make a program called pad warm, but all the samples underneath it are going to hold that same name as well. So looping, we can go into how do we want it to loop, where do we want the looping to start and stop. I find that typically leaving it at the default is fine. Auto trim, it just allows us to auto trim the start. And then make the current program upon completion, sure. Then it gives us an estimated duration on how to make this program happen. So once we hit do it, what we're going to hear is the MPC sending a note over to the external synth. The audio comes back in, it's going to record that, and then just go every 6 steps and record those notes, key map them, and then we'll have a program that we can play polyphonically. So let's do it. So once auto sampling is completed, you can see it jumps back to the main window. The track is automatically changed to a key group track, and it's automatically loaded the pad warm. And now, since this is inside the MPC, we can hold Shift, go to Notes, and change this to chords and play chords with the sounds that were once just monophonic. So now we've captured the raw sound out of the analog synth, and now comes my favorite part, the sound design. So let's click on our little eyeball to open up our track view. Click inside where it says Inserts so we can jump over into the 4 effect slots. And let's put a high cut and a low cut. So air filter, you can see here that we have this as a low pass or high cut. So as we're playing, then let's go into the next, and let's add that same filter, but we're going to go in and change this filter from a low pass to a high pass, and now we have the ability to cut the lows really quickly. Then let's add some reverb on the 3rd slot. And on the 4th slot, let's come in and add the delay analog sync. I find that these 4 effects are my go-to for sound manipulation when I'm building these instruments. So I'm gonna go ahead and save this effects rack just so I can recall it later. So I'm gonna click on my SD card that's inserted. I'm gonna go new folder and just call this effects rack, save it, and I'm gonna call this instrument rack. Now, once these are saved, in the future, if I want to read load all 4 of these without doing it individually, I can click the center folder right here, navigate to my SD card where it's saved, go into my effects rack, and then just select this instrument rack and load it up, and it will load all 4 of these. So now that these are loaded in, let's go ahead and map them over to the cue links right here so we have instant access to sound manipulation while we're performing. So if we hold down cue link, we can see right now that the cue links are attached to the screen. But we want to hit program right here, and we're going to edit these 16 knobs that are associated with the loaded program. So once we hit program, we're going to go right above it and hit edit cue link. Now we can see where everything is mapped. So on this top one, I want to cut off the high frequencies. On the second one, I want to sweep the lows. On this, I want to add reverb, and on this, I want to add the delay. So how would we do that? So with this one selected right here, you can just tap on it or you can tap on the screen. We're going to go over and say, I want to add a parameter from insert 1, and I want to add the cutoff frequency. Then I want to come down to the second one, and I want to add a parameter from insert 2. Again, this is going to be the cutoff frequency. Remember, we changed this to a high pass, so it's going to cut the low while we turn this knob. Then on this third one, I want to go into the insert for the reverb, which is the third insert, and I want to just add this to mix. And then on the fourth one, we're going to go, instead of volume, insert 4 and come down to the wet dry. Now, with these assigned to here, we have instant manipulation of the key parameters that we want. You could take it even a step further and take these remainder 12 knobs and assign them to other parameters of the effects that you want to manipulate. So since this is on the reverb mix right here, let's go into the second bank and select this, and let's actually go into insert 3, which is the reverb, and change it to time. That means that now, if we go over to the first one and add a little reverb, we can come into the second one and manipulate the time of that reverb. Now that we've gone through and captured the raw sound out of the external synth using Auto Sampler, added our effects, mapped those effects to the cue links so we can have real-time sound manipulation, the only thing left to do is to save the key group program. We're going to hit the little pencil down here, hit Save Program, and I'm going to save it onto my SD card so I can use this program across any other MPC that I might be using. And I'm going to save it in my programs right here, and I'm going to call it Warm Pad. Save. So that's going to wrap it up. I hope this video helped you understand how you can use the MPC's auto sampler to take analog synths and make your own unique instruments inside the MPC. I think this is really cool. If you know somebody that has a lot of synths, maybe you could borrow one, connect your MPC, and start making your own library of unique sounds that only you have. Now, if you want to grab the pack that we played at the beginning of this video, just click the link below and head over to Patreon, join the community, and then all the downloads of all the tutorials are there on the site. And on that note, thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. Now, go make something cool.